Hey, ladies, welcome, welcome. Just gonna warn you, my dogs are here and people are walking around, so they may go barking on us, and hopefully it's not too bad. So, welcome. If you're here live, drop a smiley face, say hi, let me know where you're from in the comments. So I know that you're here with me, and if you're catching this as a replay, type replay in the comments and just to let me know that you're here, because I want to see that you're actually here and listening. You know what I mean? So today we're going to be talking about something that every single one of us has struggled with at some point, and that's self-sabotage. Yeah, self-sabotage, that sneaky little habit that shows up right when you're starting to make real progress on your journey. You're eating healthier, you're moving more, you're feeling good, and then suddenly, bam, you're knee deep into a bag of chips wondering what just happened. Does that sound familiar? If that sounds like you, then you're not alone. I promise you, you're not alone. And if you've ever felt that, like, you're doing everything right, but somehow, still getting in your own way, I want you to know this: it's not your fault. You're not broken, you're not weak. And today I'm going to show you why this happens. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to stop it for good. So, there we go. Here's what we'll be diving into: why self sabotage happens and how it affects your health journey, where it comes from. Spoiler alert, it's not about willpower. How to spot it in real time, how to break the cycle using psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, basically reframing and rethinking, and mindfulness. And then simple, actionable steps that you can take starting today to kind of reclaim control over your choices and habits. And by the end of this two-part live stream, because I split it into two because I realized, wow, I wrote a lot and it's really going to go long. So by the time we reach the end of part two of this live stream, you'll know exactly how to identify and break self-sabotaging habits, which means you'll be able to stay on track longer and stronger than ever before. Sound good? If you're ready to finally stop self-sabotage in its tracks, type "I'm ready" in the comments right now. Let me see it, ladies. Type it. I want to see who's ready to break free from these old patterns. All right, next page. All right, why stopping self-sabotage matters. All right, so let's get real here. Why do we even need to talk about this, and why does it matter? Self-sabotage is that sneaky voice that says, oh, you know what? One cookie's not going to hurt, right? You've said that, right? I know you have, because I know I have. And then it's suddenly 5 cookies later. Or it's that moment that you plan to work out at 6 a.m. I'm getting up early. But at 6:02 or 6:10 or 6:15, or like on the third time that the alarm actually goes off and you've snoozed it again, you're still in bed telling yourself, I'll just do it later. I'll do it later on in the afternoon after work. Sound familiar? Here's the thing: self-sabotage isn't about willpower or about being lazy. Nah. It's actually your brain doing exactly what it's designed to do. Your brain loves patterns and routines. It wants to keep you safe and comfortable. And the problem is, comfortable isn't always healthy. When you're trying to change a habit, your brain goes, wait a minute. What's this new thing she's doing? This isn't familiar, and familiar feels safe to me. So it pulls you back. You might have heard of this called the comfort zone, which I just quoted on this slide here. But here's the kicker: your comfort zone can be toxic. Nothing ever grows there. If you're stuck in a cycle of dieting, and restarting, this is why. Self-sabotage is like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. It's exhausting, and you don't get very far. So research backs this up. There's a concept called cognitive dissonance. And you can actually feel cognitive dissonance kind of in your gut, right? Which is when your actions don't match your beliefs. For example, you believe that you should eat healthy, but your actions say otherwise. Your brain feels uncomfortable, and instead of changing the action, it changes your belief. So you tell yourself, you know what? I deserve this. It's not a big deal. Boom. Self sabotage. Your brain wins. But if we don't address self sabotage, it becomes this repeating cycle, right? And this cycle isn't just frustrating, it affects our health in a big way. Every time you break a promise to yourself, it chips away at your self trust. It makes you doubt your ability to stick with it. But here's the good news, I'm going to show you how to stop it for good. All right, where self-sabotage comes from. So let's break down this whole self-sabotage thing actually like where it comes from. Because if you're like most women I work with, you're probably wondering, why do I keep doing this to myself? I know what I should do, so why don't I do it? And the truth is, none of us need another diet in the world. We know exactly what we need to do to be healthy and feel good about ourselves. Yet self-sabotage always gets in the way. So asking that question is really $1,000,000 question. So here's the answer. Self-sabotage doesn't happen because you're lazy or because you lack discipline. It happens because of your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is like a computer operating system, running a bunch of programs in the background. It's processing thousands of thoughts and actions on autopilot. And most of the time, you don't even realize it. This part of your brain loves habits, routines, and anything that feels safe and familiar, even if it's not good for you. And the problem is a lot of the programming that's in your subconscious mind is outdated. It was installed during childhood or past experiences and repeated social conditioning. That's why even when you logically know you should be eating healthier or exercising or sticking to your plan, your subconscious mind is still pulling you toward behaviors that feel safe. So let's break down the most common root causes of self-sabotage. And as I go through these, I want you to think about which of these sound familiar to you, because awareness is the first step to actually breaking free. So if you have a pen or a piece of paper, want to jot down some notes, do that, because we have some action items coming at the back end of this live stream. Okay, the first one here is childhood conditioning and family beliefs. So many of our beliefs about food, health, and self-discipline are shaped during childhood. And these beliefs are often passed down from well-meaning parents, teachers, and family members who didn't know any better. As kids, we literally absorb everything around us like sponges. And these beliefs become rules that we live by as adults. The problem with this was some of these rules don't serve us anymore, and they're so deeply embedded that we don't even realize that they're still running the show. So here's some common beliefs that we picked up in childhood that cause self-sabotage as adults. And let me know by commenting if any of these are kind of running on autopilot in your brain. Clean your plate. I get this with a lot of clients. Clean your plate's a big one, and it was a big one for me too. And this belief can make you feel guilty for leaving food behind. Even if your kids leave food behind, you might feel guilty and eat their food because the clean plate mentality, right? And then it leads to overeating. Food is a reward. Let me know if that one's one of yours. If you were rewarded with sweets or treats for good behavior as a kid, right? You're in the grocery store with mom and she's like, if you're good and don't misbehave while we're here, we'll get you something sweet on the way out, right? We'll let you have some candy on the way out when we were at the register. So then your brain starts associating food with comfort or celebration. And then don't waste food, which I kind of nicked on a second ago. This belief makes it hard to throw away leftovers or uneaten food, or even your kids' uneaten food, leading to eating more than you need. So studies have been done on childhood food behaviors that show that children who are pressured to clean their plate, I had starving kids in China at my house, I had to clean my plate, which usually meant sticking the cooked carrots in my pocket and then throwing them in the trash when mom wasn't looking. But children that are pressured to clean their plate are more likely to ignore their body's natural hunger and fullness cues as adults. Do you even pay attention to hunger and fullness cues? I'd be interested to know. This disconnect between those hunger signals can make it way harder to regulate portion control and recognize when you're full. These beliefs can feel like invisible rules running in the background, right? But here's the truth. You're not a child anymore. There goes the dog. And you're allowed to create, oh my gosh, I can't even find where the mute is just to mute him for a second. So you're not a child anymore. And you're allowed to create new rules for yourself. It was so important I had to make sure I said that even though he was barking. So once you recognize these patterns, you can start replacing them with beliefs that actually serve you in this season of life. Okay, so the next one, and this is what I think I have a bunch of these. So this one, when I went through these years ago, I was like, I always thought I had fear of failure, but I didn't realize I also had fear of success. And a lot of these self-sabotage behaviors also take place in other areas of your life. So it's not just eating and being healthy. You'll find it in other areas, in work, career, in your relationships. You'll find it kind of bleeds out in other areas as well. So fear of success. And I know this one sounds strange at first because hey, who would be afraid of success? But it's actually more common than you might think. Fear of success is the fear of what will happen after you achieve your goal. So it sounds backwards, right? Why would we be afraid of success? Ugh. Here's why. Success means change. Remember I said your brain likes things the same. It finds comfort in that. Change causes the brain discomfort. So when you achieve a big goal like losing weight, gaining confidence, or feeling in control of your health, you might suddenly feel pressure to keep it up or meet other people's expectations. Your brain, which craves familiarity, will try to pull you back to your old ways to avoid this discomfort. So signs that you may have a fear of success. You worry about being judged by friends or family about losing weight. You think, what if I can't maintain this? And sabotage yourself before you even start. Or you feel uncomfortable with too much attention, compliments, or recognition for things that you've done. So a study done in 2018 on self-sabotage and self-efficacy found that people with a high fear of success were more likely to unconsciously sabotage their efforts by procrastinating, sound familiar? I know that one very well, skipping steps, or conveniently forgetting about their goals. Oh, I was supposed to drink more water today, right? This fear is often rooted in self-worth and the belief that they're not good enough to sustain success. The takeaway here, recognize that success isn't scary. What's scary is change and uncertainty, but you can remind yourself that change is a sign of growth and you are worthy of your success. The next one is fear of failure. So this one's probably one of the most obvious ones that cause self-sabotage because nobody likes to fail. But what's interesting is that fear of failure often disguises itself as perfectionism or procrastination. So if you've ever said, I'll start on Monday, or I'll start again on Monday, or I'll start next Monday, or I need to have everything perfectly planned before I begin. Like every food's got to be here. I've got to be prepped. I've got to do this. I've got to do that before I get started. That's fear of failure talking. So here's how fear of failure sounds in your mind. If I mess up, it means I'm a failure. If I can't do it perfectly, I might as well not do it at all. What's the point? I've tried before and it didn't work. So more studies here on perfectionism reveal that perfectionists are more likely to procrastinate and abandon their goals because they fear not meeting their own impossible standards. That's why you might fall off track as soon as you have a bad day, right? As soon as you hit an obstacle, you're done. Your brain sees one slip up as a total failure, so it convinces you to quit entirely. Have you ever done that? So here's the truth. Failure is not final. It's feedback. I love this thought. failure is not final, it's just feedback. Instead of saying I failed, say what can I learn from this? Shifting to a growth mindset is one of the fastest ways to stop perfectionism from controlling your actions. Okay, next up, limiting beliefs. We talked about these last week. Limiting beliefs are sneaky little devils. They're the thoughts you have that sound like the truth, but they're actually just opinions or stories you've been telling yourself for years. Some of the most common limiting beliefs sound like this: I'm just not a disciplined person. I've always struggled with my weight, so I always will. Or I'm not strong enough to change. Limiting beliefs are dangerous because they control your identity. They are I am statements. You're literally telling yourself who you are when you say these things. And here's the kicker: your brain will always act in alignment with your identity. It's a belief system. If you believe I'm the type of person who never sticks with anything, your actions will reflect that belief. It is basically prophetic. More research. And I don't know if you've read this book, but Dr. Carol Dweck, she wrote a book on mindset, and I think it's actually called Mindset. And she talks about growth mindsets versus fixed mindsets. And she found that people with a growth mindset, that belief that skills can be learned and improved, were significantly more likely to persist in challenging tasks like losing weight than people with a fixed mindset. If you believe you can change, you're far more likely to actually change. So here's how to shift it. Anytime you catch yourself saying, I always, I never, I am, followed with something negative, pause and challenge it. Ask yourself, is this a fact or is this just a story I've been telling myself? Most of the time, it's a story and you have the power to rewrite it. All right, and the last one I'm going to talk about today is the comfort zone. The comfort zone. This is like maybe the number one reason why most people stay stuck. Your brain is wired to keep you in that familiar territory, even if that territory isn't healthy for you. The comfort zone is your brain's kind of safe space. It's predictable, it's easy, but it's also stagnant and some of the times pretty darn boring. Your brain's number one goal is survival. That's what your brain wants you to do. It wants you to survive and make it to the next day. So it's going to resist change at all costs, even if the change is good for you. So signs you're stuck in the comfort zone. You avoid starting new habits because it feels too hard. I want you to let me know if this one resonates with you. You keep telling yourself, I'll start next week. You fall back into old patterns as soon as things get stressful. So oh my God, I'm going to stumble over this. Neuroplasticity. There we go. Research shows that it takes anywhere from 21 to 66 days to form a new habit. So 21 days to form a new habit is rare. I'm just going to let you know that. If you've done a 3-week program, it's like, yay, 21 days, you've got a new habit. Most of us, nah. It can take upwards of 90, 120 days. The average is actually 66 days to nail a new habit. How long have you stuck with something that long to actually create a new habit? It takes that long because the brain literally has to rewire old neuro pathways and make new paths with that. And that's why self-sabotage happens in the first few weeks of starting a new routine or a new program or a new diet, because we haven't really fully established a new habit yet. And your brain is pulling you back to the normal wiring that's going on in your brain. So to get out of this comfort zone, you need to disrupt the patterns. You need to get crazy in there, shake some things loose, do something different, even if it's small. And that's basically my recommendation to anybody that works with me in the Total Transformation Program, is to start with the small things. Take tiny steps. Sometimes you can slip underneath that comfort zone. You can slip underneath that little wiring from your brain that wants to pull you back, because it goes by unnoticed because it's so tiny. And people call these things micro actions, and they're really powerful. So start small. If you always, scroll your phone before bed, which by the way is probably messing up your circadian rhythms and creating poor sleep habits, try 1 minute of deep breathing instead. Put the phone down, close your eyes, and just focus on breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your nose as deep as you possibly can. Tiny changes force your brain to adapt, which makes growth possible. Okay. Next page. Okay, so before we wrap up part 1 of this, yep, I called it pretty well here. Before we wrap up part 1 of this conversation on self-sabotage, let's take a moment to review everything we covered today. So we started talking about why it's so important to stop self-sabotage. We learned that it's not about willpower or discipline. It's about how your brain is actually wired. Your brain craves comfort, I got an accent there. Your brain craves comfort, routine, and a familiarity, even if those habits aren't good for you. And this is why self-sabotage happens, especially when you try to change. It's like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And it's really exhausting, isn't it? Because you don't get anywhere. You're just spinning your wheels. Okay, then we explored the 5 biggest root causes of self-sabotage, and these are really big ones. Childhood conditioning, that drives a lot of the boat here. Beliefs from childhood like clean your plate or don't waste food is still controlling your eating and decision making today. Fear of success, raising my hand, that one's one of mine. Yep, success can feel scary because it brings new expectations and pressure, so your brain tries to pull you back to safety. Fear of failure. Raise my hand again. That's another one for me. Perfectionism and procrastination are sneaky signs of this. If you wait for the perfect time, that's fear talking. And honestly, there is never a perfect time. Limiting beliefs, those sneaky little lies, I'm not disciplined, or I've never been able to lose weight. They feel true, but once you poke holes in them, they're not facts. You learn that. And then the comfort zone. Your brain wants to stay in what feels safe and familiar, but familiar isn't always healthy. Stepping outside the comfort zone is where real growth starts to happen. All of this leads to one big takeaway. Self-sabotage is not your fault, and don't get offended by what I'm going to say here, but it's your responsibility to change it. You're in control, and you can do it. We've laid the groundwork in part 1 today by identifying the root causes. Next week in part 2, we're going to get to the really good stuff. We're going to learn how to spot self-sabotage in real time, and more importantly, how to break it using tools like reframing, rewiring thoughts, mindfulness, and action-based strategies that you can start immediately. And before we get to part 2, I have some action steps for you to take this week. These are critical if you want next week's session to hit even harder. Next page. So here's how you can prep for part 2 of our live stream series. And this is why I wanted you to have a pen and a pencil handy. If you want to take these action steps seriously, because the more aware you are of your patterns, the easier it will be to break them next week or start down that path to breaking these habits. Self-sabotaging habits left and right. So are you ready? All right, here's what I want you to do this week. First, I want you to start a self-sabotage reflection journal. Just grab, I'm sure you have like 20 journals sitting around your house like I do. Just pick up an old one. Don't wait to find the perfect one, because that's one of your self-sabotaging behaviors, rearing its ugly head. Just pick something up that's around the house. You can do it on your notes app on your phone, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And then each day I want you to write down any self-sabotaging behaviors you noticed. And next to each behavior, write down which of the 5 root causes it's tied to. Is it childhood conditioning, fear of success, fear of failure, limiting beliefs, or your comfort zone? And if it doesn't fit in any of those boxes, then, write a question mark or make up your own name for it, right? And then ask yourself, where have I seen this pattern before? If you procrastinated your workout, is it connected to fear of failure? If you mindlessly snacked, was it tied to childhood beliefs about cleaning your plate? So why this all matters. So when you can see your patterns clearly, you can start to disrupt them. You can start to cause chaos with these hardwired habits that are in your head. So in part 2, we're going to focus on spotting self-sabotage in real time. So being able to see where it's happening in your life is key. All right, the second thing I want you to do is identify those limiting beliefs. So identify 1 to 2 limiting beliefs you've been telling yourself on repeat. And those limiting beliefs are usually started with I am or I've, and then followed by something negative about yourself, right? Pay attention to your self-talk this week. Write down any negative I am or I always or I never, statements like I'm not disciplined. I always quit halfway through. I'm just not a morning person. I still kind of say that one. I'm too old to change. After you write down the statement, ask yourself, is this actually true? Or is this just a story I've been telling myself for years? And I'll be honest, me saying I'm not a morning person, I'm the most morning person in this house. There, I just poked holes in it. I'm up before everybody else, sometimes before the dogs. So then once you've written down that statement and asked yourself if it's actually true or if it's a story, I want you to write down a new belief that you want to replace it with. For example, the old belief, I'm not disciplined. The new belief, I'm learning to show up for myself every day. Just like I just did. I just poked holes in it and said I'm actually the most morning person in my house. And that's true. So why this all matters. Limiting beliefs shape your identity, and your brain will act according to your identity. You're telling yourself who you are. If you believe you're not a disciplined person, you're going to act accordingly. You're going to be that person that you say you are, an undisciplined person. In part 2, we're going to learn how to actively challenge, sorry about the dogs, and replace these beliefs in real time. So identifying them now is going to give you a head start. Oh my goodness, they're nuts right now. Okay. And the third one, expand your comfort zone. So the goal here is to take one small action, one of those micro actions I talked about a second ago, that pushes you outside your comfort zone. So how to do it? I want you to ask yourself, what's one thing I've been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable? Is it going to a fitness class when you don't know anyone? I'll get closer to the mic so you can hear more of me and less him. Is it drinking water instead of soda for one day? One day! You can do that, right? Just one day of drinking water instead of pop. Or is it going on a 10-minute walk when you'd normally do nothing and just, scroll Netflix or scroll on your phone on the couch? Choose one small action, just something tiny, just to get started, to prove to yourself that you can do it. And when you do it, write down how you felt. Was it as uncomfortable as you thought? We're poking holes again. Did you survive it? I bet you did. Spoiler alert, you're probably still going to be here. So why this matters, your comfort zone is your brain's safe space, but growth never happens there in your comfort zone. And this exercise is about showing your brain that discomfort isn't dangerous, it's just unfamiliar. By doing something small outside your comfort zone, you're training your brain to be more open to change. Okay, before we go, and if you've been nodding along thinking, oh my God, this is me, I do this all the time, then I want you to know that you don't have to figure this out alone. This is exactly why I created my Total Transformation Program. The Total Transformation Program is designed to help you identify and break self-sabotaging habits like the ones we talked about today. No more guessing, no more starting over every Monday, finally making real progress and taking intentional steps toward lifelong success. Inside the program, you're going to get one-on-one coaching with me to help you spot and challenge your unique self-sabotaging patterns. There's going to be custom habit strategies so that you can stop running on autopilot and start acting intentionally and getting the results that you want. And accountability. Because let's be real, we all do way better when someone's checking in on us. Like, way better when somebody's checking in on us. But here's the best part. I'm inviting you to schedule a free Healthy Habits call on the screen with me. And this call is completely free. It's where we'll start to get clear on your biggest self-sabotaging patterns and what you can do to finally break it. No pressure, just a little clarity in your life. So go to the website on the screen there, pick a time that works for you, and show up ready to have a breakthrough conversation. On this call, we'll talk about what habits are keeping you stuck. I'll share with you 3 habit breaking techniques that I used at the beginning of my journey to help me break through and totally transform my habits and mindset for success, even during menopause, when everything seems to get more challenging. And if the Total Transformation Program feels like a good fit for you, we can talk more about that. No pressure. And if not, you'll still walk away with clarity and some tools on how to move forward. So if you're finally ready to get unstuck, either go to glowforlifefitness.com/healthy habits and schedule your healthy habits call, or drop the word unstuck in the comments and I'll reach out to you. This could be the moment you look back on and say, that's when everything changed. All right. So that's a wrap for part 1. Today we laid that foundation by identifying why self-sabotage happens and where it comes from. Your job this week is to reflect, journal, and identify the root causes of your own self-sabotage. Use the action items I gave you and get ready, because in part 2, we're going to go way deeper. We'll learn how to spot self-sabotage in real time and, more importantly, how to break it. I am so proud of you for showing up for yourself today. And remember, you're stronger than your self-sabotage. I'll see you next week for part 2. Take care.